Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be testing out the Rimmel Stay Matte Foundation. One of you guys actually tweeted me a link saying that this was a dupe for the Tarte Amazonian Clay Foundation, which if you don't know, the Tarte Foundation is like my all-time favorite holy grail. So of course I was like, I have to try this out and see what this is all about and see if it's really a dupe, because this is like such a small fraction of the price compared to Tarte, and you guys really seem to enjoy my drugstore first impressions. But anyways, if this is the first video of mine you are seeing, I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe down below. It really helps me out, and that way you can keep an eye out for all of my future foundation reviews. I will also have my full playlist of foundation reviews that I've done in the past down there as well. But anyways, let's jump into the review. So first of all, I paid $6.99 for this foundation on sale at Shoppers Drug Mart, and from what I saw online, it's usually $4.99 in US dollars. Get the standard 1 fluid ounce or 30 ml. Packaging is very simple. It's just like a standard tube. I don't really know what else to say about it, but good for traveling and stuff like that. The shade selection is quite slim. This is only available in 8 different shades, so it might be a little bit harder to find your match, especially if you have a deeper complexion. You're really not going to be able to find a suitable option in this foundation. I picked up the shade 100 Ivory, which was their third lightest. In terms of finish and coverage, this is supposed to have a very natural, soft matte kind of finish, and I can't see any actual claims for the coverage on like Rimmel's site and online, but from the reviews, I'm guessing that it's full coverage. Claims are that it is oil free, it is supposed to be feather light, it's supposed to provide very great shine control from the name Stay Matte, and it's also supposed to not feel very heavy or greasy on the skin, and it's supposed to blend very flawlessly and easily. I could not see any recommendations for how to apply this foundation from Rimmel, so I'm just going to be using the Beauty Blender, because while they say it shouldn't feel heavy or greasy, I have heard some people say it is a heavier foundation, so I thought this would help kind of minimize that a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started with the application. Alright, so I got my hair back. I've already primed the left half of my face. I went with the Maybelline Master Prime Blur and Smooth Primer today, and I forgot to mention on the packaging it says Stay Matte Liquid Mousse Foundation, so that's kind of what the texture is supposed to be like. So let's get a little bit of this on the back of my hand. Alright, so texture is quite thick. It does seem fairly similar to the Tarte foundation. A little bit moussier though. It looks like a little bit more whipped kind of. Definitely very thick. It's not like moving around or anything on my hand, so let's just start applying this. So that is what one layer is looking like. The shade definitely isn't that great for me. It's definitely too pink, and I feel like it's coming across a little bit ashy and also like a little bit too dark on my skin. Like it's definitely darker than my like neck and chest, but yeah, that's the downside of having like a very small shade selection. This was, I think, kind of the best one for me from what I remember when I was like swatching them at the drugstore. I might have been able to go one shade lighter though, which usually never happens to me. It is definitely a very matte finish, which if you've seen any of my foundation reviews, you know that that's not what I typically opt for, even though I do have very oily skin. I did cover fairly well though. I probably ended up using about like the size of like a chickpea, I would say, and it didn't completely cover everything. Like you can definitely still see scarring on this side. One thing I will say was that it was pretty hard to pick up with the Beauty Blender and like evenly distribute it, but it blended out well. I can't see any like streaking or anything like that. I'm gonna add like a tiny little bit more on my cheeks. I've read that this foundation doesn't build that well and it can get quite heavy, so I'm just gonna take like the tiniest little bit more and see how it works, just to kind of see if I can build up that coverage a little bit more. Alright, so I built it up a little bit more in that area, and it did build up fairly well. It didn't get super cakey or anything like that, so I'd say you can build it if you need to. It is very matte. Like if you are someone who wants a really matte complexion, you'll probably really like the finish of it because it definitely delivers on that front. I will say, however, that my skin does look fairly rough. It is definitely better on the prime side where I use that more smoothing primer, but you can definitely see like pores and like rough texture on my skin, which is pretty normal, and I am creasing a little bit in here already on this side of my face. So yeah, so far not bad. The coverage is okay. The shade just really doesn't match me, so I don't know. I think I'm going to a movie tonight, so at least I'll be sitting in the dark. But yeah, I think I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup. I'll do a close-up, of course. Not my favorite so far, but I think once I add like a little bit of highlight and get that kind of natural finish that I like, I'll probably like it quite a bit more. So I'll do my close-up, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish off my face products. I used my Sephora Collection Bright Future Gel Serum Concealer. I have the shade 03 Fondant, which is like a more yellow base concealer, so I did quite a bit of it under my eyes and in my T-zone. Then I set my entire face with my RCMA No Color Powder. I just got this and I'm just kind of testing it out. I didn't want to put on anything too heavy, so that's why I went for something translucent, because it's not super heavy to be honest, but it's thick, if that makes sense. You guys are probably like, what are you even talking about? Like, how is it thick but not heavy? It's more the fact that I didn't want to like over powder it and like really matte it down, because it's already very matte, which I'm not a huge fan of. And then for eye area, I opted for something a little bit more yellow once again, so I just used Banana from my Anastasia contour kit. I think aside from the shade and the finish that it's looking pretty good. Once again, if you want like a really matte foundation and you love that finish, I think you will really enjoy this. It's just personally not for me, but of course it might help me out a lot in terms of oil control throughout the day, so we'll have to see. I think it does look quite a bit smoother too now that I have powdered it. I think the coverage is good. I consider this a perfectly fine amount of coverage for myself and I'm quite happy with it. I still have a couple spots showing through. I chose not to spot conceal because I was just like, whatever, I can't be bothered. I think that's all I have to say for now. I'm going to do my close-up now that I'm all powdered and everything. Do my close-up with my makeup done. You guys know the drill by now. And I will be doing my check-ins later on. It's 1:30 now, as it is always, because let's face it, I'm not a productive member of society. As per usual, we're gonna do a starting time at 1 o'clock. I feel like this is something that's going to hold up well throughout the day though, just from the texture of it. Main difference is that it's definitely more matte than the Tarte foundation. But anyways, let's do those close-ups. Check-in. It is almost 5:30, so I've had this foundation on for about 4.5 hours. Don't really have any complaints so far. I think it's looking pretty good. I obviously added quite a bit of highlight to give it a bit more of a glow and some more life to it, but I think it looks okay. I think the shade's a little bit better now that I finished off the rest of my face makeup, but it's still not perfect, that's for sure. And I feel like this foundation really lives up to all the claims. Like, I feel like they hit the nail on the head with the claims. Like, it's lightweight. So far it's controlling oil, but we'll see. Doesn't feel heavy like they said, and it blended really easily. It's got really good coverage. My one complaint would be that it's a little bit cakey in my mouth area, just like ever so slightly, and I'm getting like creasing in here and creasing around my nose, but that's not a huge deal. It's something I experience with a lot of foundations. Those are kind of my like problem areas, but yeah, no huge complaints like I said, but at the same time, there's nothing about it that's really like wowing me. I think mostly because I'm not a fan of the matte finish. Right now I'm like, yeah, it looks okay, but am I gonna want to wear this more? Is it something I'm really going to actively want to reach for? I'm not really sure. I think the ultimate test really will just be how long it wears and if it really does hold up against my oils as my skin gets oily throughout the day. I'm about to go to a movie. I'm just like in my pajamas because I'm just about to get dressed and leave. So we will see. I actually think the Tarte foundation is a little bit like thicker in texture and a little bit heavier. I think this one has that more whipped kind of moussey consistency, so that makes it feel a lot lighter on the skin, but I get a more natural, slightly light reflecting finish with the Tarte, so I'm preferring that one still. One thing with the Tarte foundation though is that I find it is not transfer proof. Like, if I accidentally bump my face throughout the day, or if I'm wearing like sunglasses or whatever, my foundation will wear off really easily in those areas. Or for me, I'm always like touching my hair and doing things like that. I find I'll like wear off on my forehead here. I think I'm just gonna see if I have any issues with that throughout the day, but I think that was all I had to update on so far. I just realized I have clothes on the floor behind me, so I'm sorry about the mess if that's bothering you. But yeah, I think I will talk to you guys in my final check-in. Oh, I look so tired. Like, what is this? What is happening here? So this is my final check-in for the Rimmel Stay Matte Foundation. It's 11:30, so I've had this foundation on for about 10.5 hours. Let's jump into the pros and cons. First pro is that I do like the coverage of this foundation. It's a really good, true, full coverage product. The application was also very easy, and it does feel fairly light on my skin despite providing a good amount of coverage. One kind of neutral thing is that I don't think it's anything super special in terms of oil control. If you have just like truly very oily skin like I do, you're still gonna get oily in your T-zone. So that's why it's not a con. But moving into cons, my main con is that my blush and bronzer have really faded. Like, you honestly can barely tell I applied anything to my cheeks today, so that is a big no for me. Being quite fair, I feel like blush and bronzer is like what gives my face life and what gives it dimension when I've applied a full coverage foundation, so I really don't like the fact that those products faded. So yeah, all in all, I think this is a good foundation, but for some reason there's just something that isn't like wowing me. Like, it has good coverage, I feel like it looks good on my skin, but there's nothing that's making me be like, yes, I want to wear this product every single day. I'd say if you want a good full coverage foundation and you're like on a budget or just getting into makeup or just don't want to spend a ton of money on foundation, that this is a really good option, especially if you do want a really matte finish. I feel like this is a foundation that I would have loved when I was probably like 15, 16 years old and I was like super obsessed with being matte. I see why people compare it to Tarte. I think it is comparable, but it's not like an exact dupe, but it is probably the closest thing at the drugstore, I would say. I wasn't expecting it to beat Tarte or anything because that's my favorite and it's been my favorite for quite a few years, so I would be very impressed if I try a foundation that tops that. So yeah, that was kind of my 2 cents. I like it, I think it's a good product, but it's not something that I will see myself reaching for every day, just because I feel like I have other foundations in my collection that just, they kind of wow me a little bit more, you know what I mean? All in all, I think it is a good solid drugstore foundation. I would recommend it. Is it the best foundation out there? No, but it is a perfectly fine product, especially for like under $10, so I don't know. I feel like this review is coming off kind of like wishy-washy and indecisive, but I don't know, it's just lacking something for me, I guess you could say. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, as always, and of course, if you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe down below and check out my playlist of all my past foundation reviews, and check me out on Instagram and Twitter as well, and I will talk to all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys! Because I thought that was a little bit unusual at first, but I mean, I'm not complaining. So yeah, if you guys think I've been like going to the dermatologist and not vlogging it, I haven't been. I am going to vlog my next appointment when I go back for